sons of Skycrew's thief. She might even be angry enough to declare war!
And you're both really good people, and if you don't wake up and face your...
You think I'd let you get away with that? Think again.
Your shirt.
Someone call a medic.
In the last century, media has consistently and disproportionately killed off female lesbian and bisexual characters, often in a more graphic manner than their straight counterparts. This trope, coined as the bury your gays trope, highlights the unreasonable killing of queer female characters at a much higher rate than straight cisgender characters. According to Aaron Wagner, a professor at the University of Connecticut, since 1976 there have been 166 openly lesbian or bisexual female characters on television who died. This number may seem small since it's a little over the span of 50 years, but considering how few lesbians or bisexual characters there have been in total since then, and compared to how many heterosexual characters there are on television now, the death rate of queer women is extremely high.
The roots of this trend extend back to the early era of American cinema, where queer characters were only portrayed through subtext as a result of the Hays Code, which was in place from 1930 to 1968. This censorship code prohibited any depictions of homosexuality and other taboo topics, resulting in writers being forced to negatively impact their queer characters, either through renouncing of their sexuality, sickness, either mental or physical, or death. Through centuries of institutionalized homophobia, this has culminated into the disproportionate killing of lesbian and bisexual female characters.
According to the 2016 annual report on LGBTQ inclusion by the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, more than 25 queer female characters have died on scripted television and streaming series since the beginning of the year. Furthermore, they state that most of these deaths serve no purpose other than to further the narrative of a more central and often straight cisgender character. Their 2014 study showed a 5-year trend on representation of queer characters on broadcast television. Lesbian and bisexual characters, represented by the blue and red lines respectively, are severely underrepresented. When compared to the total number of queer versus straight characters, this number becomes even smaller. In total, queer women accounted for 10% of all deaths on television, a number highly disproportionate to the rate of representation. Another discrepancy in representation of queer characters in general is the distribution of race and ethnicity. Looking back at the 2016 study, GLAAD observed how little queer characters of color make up the whole compared to their white counterparts. White queer characters make up on average 67% of all representation across broadcast, cable, and streaming services, while queer characters of color on average only make up 33%. Looking again at that year's total number of queer characters, specifically queer women, compared to straight characters, there's a skewed favoring of white, female, cisgender representation, which does not accurately represent current demographics of race and gender. The intersectionality of these two identities play a huge role in determining which types of characters are written and then represented. The diversity of queer characters is already so limited. Killing off that small number furthers the toxic idea of queerness being bad.
One show currently on air represents this trope perfectly. The 100, which premiered in 2014 on the CW, had previously been commended for its broadly diverse characters, including intersectionalities of gender, ethnicity, ability, both mental and physical, and sexual orientation. The future the show is set in is seemingly a one where racism no longer exists, and all countries have somehow assimilated peacefully into groups, which still have their divisions, yet none relate to race or gender. However, in the third season, the show angered fans by killing off its most prominent lesbian character, Lexa, who is in a relationship with a bisexual character, Clark. Fans were angered for many reasons, two of the major ones being she was a powerful lesbian character and was good for representation, and second, the writers built up the relationship between these two characters, then as soon as they did finally get together, Lexa was killed off. Though Lexa's character has received backlash because of the exoticizing of her features with brown face and the use of facial jewelry similar to Bindi's, she still represents a strong, queer female character whose sexuality wasn't represented as a negative character trait. Highlighted by huge social media attention, Lexa's death shed more light on this trope and reignited public interest in fixing it.
Using the death of queer characters represents a problematic tendency television writers fall into in an attempt to dramatize storylines. By killing off more than half of these already underrepresented characters, writers are telling fans that they should not become attached to queer characters, because there's a high possibility that they will be killed off before the end of the season. We believe there are a few different solutions that can help end this trope. One is creating more positive female queer representation on television. This provides queer kids and teenagers with a better chance of feeling accepted because they can look towards these characters as role models. The next is giving more queer writers and directors opportunities to create content. This will aid in creating positive role models and having more accurate representations. Including more queer characters of color will accurately represent the current population compared to the predominantly white portrayal we see today. In these ways, and many more, queer representations would help make queerness more normalized than it is in our society today.